Hello, I'm Daniela Elana. In episode 42 of Historical Paranormal, we'll explore the urban folklore of night doctors in African American culture and how it affects modern urban legends. There are a number of regional variations to the night doctor belief. The standard version begins with an unsuspecting individual traveling alone after dark. From out of the shadows, a group of ghastly figures emerge, their faces concealed by crudely stitched masks. To the unsuspecting victim, they appear as ghosts, witches, devils, or disfigured monsters. Some wear white lab coats. Consciousness is soon lost, the result of a hypodermic needle or chloroform-soaked rag. From here, the true horror unfolds. The victim is transported in a hearse-like wagon drawn by horses, filled with rubber shoe pads to muffle the sound of their movement. They are taken to a dimly lit basement laboratory where faceless observers gather around an operating table to witness unspeakable acts of human experimentation. Dissections and blood harvesting. A prolonged and tortured death is the individual's ultimate fate, after which their mangled remains are either kept as macabre trophies or else disposed as common medical waste. As far as scare stories go, it's downright terrifying, particularly to the very real history that surrounds it. For generations, an ominous warning had been used to instill fear and obedience in African American communities. The night doctors will get you. It was a means of social control that combined elements of folklore and historical experience, a scare tactic used at various times by slave masters, white vigilantes, and overly protective parents alike. The night doctors were terrifying figures, the boogeymen of their day, and the stories surrounding them are rooted in a uniquely American folk tradition shaped by the legacy of racial violence and subjugation. Folklorists have traced the origins of the night doctor belief back to the antebellum period, a period where Negro hospitals performed risky experimental processing in their power to hold back this mass exodus and retain the supply of cheap labor to work their fields. Violence and intimidation were common practices, but oftentimes psychological. Warfare proved to be more effective in the long term. Cities were rumored to be the hunting grounds for night doctors, and rural black folk were warned to avoid them at all cost. In time, these beliefs entered into the oral tradition of many African American communities, as children were told of what awaited them in the shadows if they wandered off after dark, doors on sleighs with impunity. African American cemeteries were routinely ransacked as part of the illicit corpse trade, and night patrols used violence and psychological warfare to uphold the white racial order throughout the southern countryside. Specific references to the night doctors, also known as night riders, needlemen, black bottlemen, sack-em-up boys, night witches, or Ku Klux doctors, would surface later. During the period of Reconstruction and Jim Crow era that followed, it was said that the night doctors lurked the streets around the medical schools, hospitals, poorhouses, and train station in search of victims to kidnap for research purposes. The social vulnerability of African Americans made them a preferred target, entangling the night doctor belief, the culture of racial terror that existed at the time. The height of the night doctor scare took place during the Great Migration, which brought thousands of African Americans to urban centers across the country in search of economic opportunity, or in many cases to escape the rising wave of white vigilantism under Jim Crow. Some have concluded that it could be the inspiration for the idea of modern alien abductions. Is it a coincidence? The first famous case of an alien abduction was Betty and Barney Hill, an interracial couple of a black man and a white woman who were abducted. Similarities of victims being paralyzed with fear and a force coming in to take them and do some form of experimentation also bears striking similarities to the legends of the night doctor. While many of the tales of the night doctors could have been exaggerated or used as a means of social control, it is rooted in a very real dark history. And some to this day still find themselves concerned about such practices, with rumors of the homeless being kidnapped and experimented on, those who were less fortunate, and the ideas of a black market with organ harvesting. Until the end of time, there will always be some force lurking in the dark, looking as a way to experiment on the human anatomy. Thank you for listening to episode 42 of Historical Paranormal. Make sure to check out the Historical Paranormal playlist if you haven't already, and stay tuned for